The normal we all knew and loved has left the building. And whether we like it or not, we are all leading in a new reality. Now, strange as this sounds to non-leaders, most of us who have been entrusted by God with leadership gifts feel curiously energized by the challenges of being in uncharted waters. It's how the Romans 12 verse 8 leadership gift actually works. There's actually, for gifted leaders, there's actually a kind of perverse exhilaration in all of this. Now, non-leaders see how fired up we leaders get in times like these. They suspect crack cocaine. But seasoned leaders know in their hearts that rogue waves and outright storms often provide the perfect conditions for greatness to emerge. Rough patches force new levels of courage and creativity. It's not optional anymore. Howling winds demand a kind of focus and dispassionate decision-making that calm seas never necessitated. Raging seas call for ruthless prioritization and brutally difficult resource allocations. But in the middle of all of it, a God-anointed leader often hears whispers from the Holy Spirit, whispers that say, "This is why I gave you a leadership gift. You were born for this. We're going to get through this together, and we're going to talk about this chapter of our lives for the rest of our lives." So even though all of us are leading in these ferocious conditions, leaders know that these are the kind of conditions that can produce our steepest learning curves, our deepest faith memories, and our strongest bonds with team members who we link arms with in the middle of these storms. So I say again, leaders, we don't mind, do we, to face a rogue wave every once in a while? I mean, it's part of what draws something out of us that calm seas never will. Now, I've been asked hundreds of times over the course of the last 8 months, "Bill, what are you learning at Willow through these stormy seasons?" My response has been, please don't ask me now, I'm busy. Because storms require constant action at the helm, not time for magazine interviews. But I did sit down a few weeks ago, and I have been journaling and processing some of the lessons I've been learning as I've been trying to lead Willow through the last 8 months. I'm going to give you 4 lessons in the next few moments. One is philosophical. One is financial. One is more relational in nature, and the last one is just personal. So let's dive into the philosophical one first. The economic rogue wave that hit the Chicagoland area with devastating force happened in October of 2008. We were in the middle of an 8-week series at Willow Creek called Influence. And in 1 week, the stock market lost 1,800 points, almost 20% of its value in 5 days. The single worst 1-week drop since the Great Depression. That week, hundreds of Willow Creekers were notified that they were going to lose their jobs. Calls started pouring into our church asking if we had money to help people with their grocery bills, their mortgage, their car payment. And I knew things were quickly going from bad to worse. We needed to act quickly and decisively. I called our leadership team together and I said, I think we need to put our current Influence series on hold. I think we need to plan a totally different service for this coming weekend, and we need to speak into what's happening with this economic collapse, and we need to speak into how it's affecting people's lives. And I think we need to tell the church exactly what we're going to do, what our response as a church is going to be to this situation. So this young leadership team pulled together around the table in my office, and we started praying, and we started animated conversations. And we started reminding each other of key scriptures. And we decided together that day that no matter how deep the downturn went or how long it lasted, how many people were adversely affected, we were going to challenge our church to be the church to one another and to our community no matter what. By that, we were saying that we were going to try to live out the Acts 2 dream in our day. especially the part where the scriptures describe how radically the early Christ followers loved one another. To the extent the scriptures tell us that they sold property and possessions to make sure that no one in the church had to live with ongoing need. We said, let's be that kind of church to one another and to our community in the middle of this economic mess. And friends, I want to tell you, that was a philosophical decision. It was not a business decision. It was not a pragmatic decision. And I assure you, it was not a naive, romanticized decision. The rogue wave that hit our community forced us to ask ourselves yet again, do we still believe that the local church is the hope of the world? Do we still believe that God can and will intervene from heaven and do supernatural stuff here on earth in and through His church? And that day we decided in my office, yes, we still believe that stuff to our core. So we put a hold on the current series. And in 3 days, we crafted a weekend service called What We Can Learn in a Downturn. When it got to the sermon part, I first spoke to the people who had lost their jobs, lost their health care benefits, some who were worried about losing their homes and cars. And I said to them straight on, God is going to teach you many lessons in this downturn. I think He will prove Himself to be faithful. But I hope you learn another lesson in the weeks and months to come. I hope you learn afresh the beauty and power and the potential of your church. So I said to the people in the church that day, those of you who are in very difficult financial situations, I'm going to ask you to humble yourselves. And I want you to let the church help you. I want you to trust the love and the generosity of the brothers and sisters that sit around you and sing with you and worship and learn with you. And I explained that we were going to expand our efforts with our food pantry, our benevolence ministry, our careers ministry, our budget counseling ministry, and so. And I ended my comments to that group of people by saying, some of you have never been on the receiving side of the equation at Willow. And God's going to teach you lessons you will never forget if you will humble yourselves and let the church be the church to you during your time of need. When I ended that section, the entire auditorium at all 3 services erupted in applause. Then in the same service, I addressed another group of people, and I addressed them straight on. And I said, many of us in this church have not been adversely affected by this downturn. And we need to step up. We need to be the church to those we worship with, to those who are facing the most difficult days of their lives. And so I challenged that group to really step up their serving and step up their praying, and especially step up their generosity, step up their giving. I didn't mince words. I stand in awe at how God intervenes from heaven when leaders make bold choices to make sure that the church is always being the church in calm seas or in big storms. I stand in awe when leaders call their churches to love like the church ought to love and meet the needs of the poor like the church should meet the needs of the poor, and to advocate for the powerless and hold the powerful accountable to what they should be doing in these difficult days. And these days more than ever, I repeat the mantra I've said for 20-some years. There is nothing like the local church when the local church is working right. There's nothing like it on planet Earth.